Hello everybody and welcome to the Media Beat episode 99. Will we get to the big 100? My money's on yes we will. I hope you have all had a great time since last time, and we have been preparing an episode fit for you, our wonderful listeners. So we're starting with one which I thought was going to be a bit contentious, the deep dive on non-English language content. And of course, being something of an Anglophile, I just wondered whether there was such a thing as things not in English, but I'm told that there is, and Claire's probably looking a bit cross now. So yes, I'm joking, of course. I'm going to be fascinated by this, and both Claire and Maureen are obviously going to contribute this as usual. So yeah, it's going to be a brilliant one and a bit of a shift. But yeah, we really need to focus on things and be less just focused on all things English. We'll talk about BBC and Channel 4 talking together, Netflix results. Dodgy things happening at Xbox, the World Cup, of course, we will be touching on. Both Claire and I are in mourning. We're recording this very shortly after both our beloved teams were dumped out of the World Cup under different circumstances. We won't moan about it too much. Chinese AI will be mentioned, and of course the Emmy nominations. But let's start, and we'll obviously start with Claire, on this fascinating subject, which, we definitely need to focus on, and that is non-English language content. Claire?
Yes, well, what spurred the decision to discuss it was that for the first time ever on Netflix, non-English language originals have overtaken English language originals. 50% of the platform's library of non-English originals are now not in English. And that got me thinking a little bit about what was going on. Obviously, there's certainly much more comfort in watching for English language audiences in watching non-English language content. This is something that, coming from France, I was much more comfortable with coming in. And I thought I would do a deep dive on it. And I'm going to start with Mussolini because, it's been a while since we haven't mentioned Mussolini on the podcast. And it's always a good time.
Friend of the show.
So if you've ever been to Spain, Italy, or Germany, or France, and you've switched on the hotel television, you've probably watched Bruce Willis speak whatever language of the country you're in. And dubbing in Central and Southern Europe is very much the standard. But I thought it was a sort of cultural and artistic choice. And actually, it started with mid-century authoritarian censorship. So basically, when the first talking movie came up, which was The Jazz Singer, they had no idea what to do. Suddenly there was text and you couldn't use the enter titles. So they decided just to put the words on the screen because it was easier. That was the beginning of subtitles. Then Hollywood actually tried to shoot the same movie multiple times with different foreign language casts. That was their initial trick to deal with foreign language. That obviously didn't work out. So they decided to do dubbing. But then this is when the politicians stepped in. In 1929, Benito Mussolini banned foreign language dialogue in films because that allowed them to censor the language and the words. And in fact, there was a very strong push to suppress regional dialects, to unify everything around the Italian language. And that was one of the big drives. In fact, in 1931, there was a direct reference to Mussolini in an American film, but in the Italian version, there isn't. We don't mention it at all. Franco did exactly the same in Spain, partly to marginalize Catalan and Basque. And then in post-war Germany, we kept the dubbing system to quietly edit uncomfortable references. In fact, there's very famous example, which is Notorious by Alfred Hitchcock, where the villains become generic drug smugglers in the German version. So you can do a lot with dubbing that you can't do with subtitling. Anyway, moving on to the post-war map, you sort of know where we were. You had Southern Central Europe, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, which remained essentially heavily dubbed market. And then Northern Europe, Scandinavia, and the Netherlands, they went for subtitling. Not so much because they loved English language, mostly because they're quite small and it was really expensive for them to dub everything, and subtitling was cheaper. Meanwhile, UK and US, as per you, Oliver, developed virtually no appetite for foreign language television at all. And it was a completely non-existent category, either dubbed or subtitles. During that period, US content in Europe was absolutely dominant. I mean, in Germany, at some point, 60% of all major theatrical and television releases were dubbed imports, mostly from Hollywood. And obviously they became really good at dubbing, and they had highly sophisticated professional national dubbing industries and voice actors became stars. So the voice of J.R. Ewing in Dallas, for instance, in France, is a very well-known voice that gets recognized as he's also a number of other characters. And I certainly grew up thinking The Cosby Show was a French language program, and many others. Now, I want to spend, I love my little Hollywood behind the scenes stories. And I want to talk about the Foley artists. So when you strip dialogue away from a movie, you lose a lot of ambient noise. You lose the steps, you lose the rush of fabric, you lose. So the first few dubbed movies, there was a sort of like very jarring artificial silence as soon as the dubbed voices started. To solve this, Hollywood had to reinvent post-production, and they created what is known as the music and effects track, M&E track. And in order to sell a movie internationally, you have to deliver an audio master that doesn't have the dialogue, but has all the other sound. And in order to do this, what you do is you have Foley artists, and I've seen this in a studio in Hollywood. You can see them happen. You see them at work. They recreate the ambient noises with basically physical cheats. So for instance, if a bone is snapping, they snap celery stalks or lettuce in front of the microphone. If there are horses, that's empty coconuts. If they are walking through snow, then that's leather pouches tacked with cornflowers. A bird flapping its wings become, gardening gloves, etc. And they've tried to replace this with AI, by the way, Maureen, and I know you'll talk about this, and it doesn't quite work. It really is about creating in a very analog way that sound, and that is still something that happens today, and it's a very interesting job. That said, I think the 2012 was a real turning point when Netflix launched its first original bilingual. It wasn't fully foreign language at the time. It was bilingual show, which was Lillehammer, which was a bilingual Norwegian and English comedy. I don't know if you remember that. That was hilarious, but it was heavily in Norwegian, apart from Stephen Van Zandt, who was speaking English. And that became a massive hit. So suddenly people were like, oh, okay, that could work. Over in the UK in 2016, the breakthrough was Walter Presents, which you may remember, it still is, I think, a big strand of content on Channel 4. It started a bit earlier with the BBC4 because they had The Killing, Borgen, they had Spiral, which is a brilliant French show. But then Walter Usolino, who is an Italian by birth, became the curator of that strand on Channel 4. And again, English-speaking audiences, I'm going to call them sophisticated English-speaking audiences, suddenly realized that they were happy to watch subtitled television as long as it was really good television. So that was the beginning of what has become an incredible shift. So remember, we're talking about in the UK and the US, a market that had zero foreign content. I mean, literally zero, either dubbed or subtitles. We have moved so far that the biggest franchise of all time on Netflix is in Korean, and it's Squid Game. That's where we are now. Netflix, in fact, scheduled 34 Korean titles for production in 2026, and Indian titles is also having a breakout year on their content. And that's moving even to the Oscars, with Parasite, and a Korean movie, winning the best film at the Oscars, which is incredible. This year, Sentimental Value, which is a Norwegian film, won Best International Feature, but also got nominated for Supporting Actor, Best Actress, etc. So we're seeing a much wider audience for these foreign language films. Now, I was interested to find out who were these people who are so much more comfortable watching subtitled or dubbed movies, and it turns out it's mostly young people. So young millennials, Gen Z and millennials, 76% of Gen Z and millennials are very comfortable watching foreign language content, compared to 56% of older viewers. And they also prefer subtitles quite significantly over dubs. But the interesting thing is they prefer subtitles on everything. So these are people who will watch anything with subtitles, not just foreign language. Since they have subtitles anyway, they don't mind if the dialogue is in another language. They're quite comfortable with that. This is a generation that's grown up on TikTok, on YouTube, etc., and are just much more comfortable with the fact that they have to read as well as listen. We do have still very strong regional differences. Asian markets, South Korea and China, overwhelmingly prefer subtitles, 72% in South Korea, 71% in China. Russia, 86% prefers dubbing. Germany, still 76% prefers dubbing. Italy, 73%. We're still talking about dubbed audio. I'm going to say there's a slight, this was quite interesting. Sorry, this is my last stat, and then I'm handing over to Maureen. There's a slight lean towards men, and the research I read, men lean towards slightly more towards subtitles compared to women. And the research I read said there were two factors there. A higher concentration of genre film purists among male viewers, which I still have to see stats for, and also the fact that women tend to multitask while they're watching content, and so they can't read as well as do something else, whereas men are single tasks, as we know. Anyway, the dubbing, as I said, and subtitling used to be done on a localized basis, but we're moving on from that with the big platforms having to set up industrial systems to dub in 30 languages from the start and subtitle in 30 languages from the start. And I'm going to hand over to Maureen to talk about how they're doing this with the new technologies.
Yeah, and I mean, everything Claire's described does really rest on a technology story that I think has moved faster than the industry realised. But I just want to pick up on something, Claire. I mean, there was, maybe Oliver knows this because of his comedy background, but the Goons, which housed Peter Sellers and a whole bunch of them from, I think, Cambridge and Oxford. I can't remember exactly where. They did that very thing in radio, where they shook rice cans, or they trod on, celery stalks, or they, reenacted certain things with some household goods in order to make the sounds and the background for a play, for example. And they did it brilliantly. And I think some of that was actually filmed as well. So it's wonderful just to watch them using these household objects in order to create the story in the background. But yeah, AI has actually taken on that feat. And I will mention a company in a minute that I believe is actually really achieving this as well, but hold that thought. So anyway, so and as Claire, you have alluded to, there's a cultural thing about the difference between listening to something in your own language, having subtitles and dubbing, and then there's also a cost and a technology. And I think the reason that a lot of studios say avoided dubbing, or even indeed just relied on subtitling, was just the sheer cost of doing it. And I looked up, and I was looking at some stats as well. I think there was to the tune of $250 and $200 a minute just to what a typical sort of dubbing studio would charge out to studios. So it's really prohibitive and quite costly. So would only do that for certain types of film where they had an audience. And so I think they didn't serve the UK market, because the UK market, for whatever reason, wasn't interested. So that sort of wall, that bridge between the viewer and the studios to enable their content to travel is definitely coming down. And I think there are, what I've noticed is 3 different types of companies that are offering these services. And the first one I'm going to say is just like pure AI voice companies, and one of them, which I really do love, is 11 Labs. 11 Labs is now offering dubbing as a largely automated pipeline, where they do translation, they do voice cloning, and they do synchronization as well, which happens all in one process across around, I think they've now got 90 languages. Oh my God. And the finished version, can be delivered in a clone of the original speaker's voice. So it's fantastic to see. At a broadcast level, human translators still remain part of the chain. They're still involved, but nonetheless, the AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Another company, which is a Ukrainian company, wonderful company, lovely founder, Alex, called Respeecher. So they come at the same problem around sort of dubbing from the craft end. And they actually won an Emmy a couple of years ago, I think, for their voice work. They're very much, they have these credits to their name for The Brutalist. Do you remember they mastered the Hungarian voice at the start of the film? And also Emilia Perez as well. I think at the time we spoke about it, but mostly for the industry's backlash than for the quality of the craft. So the second one, you've got these large, of course, big technology platforms that are coming in. And this is where I think that sound of celery snapping is something that these larger AI companies now are doing. So ByteDance in particular has just recently released their offering called Seed. And Seed has been released real time. It's speech-to-speech interpretation that can clone the speaker's voice with a delay of only 3 seconds. And all the filmmakers I'm speaking to that are using Seedance, which is part of also ByteDance, I don't know where they get these names from. They're all using these products, and it is very much you can get the entire scene, you can get multiple voices, you can get the celery crunching, and you can do that all in one single pass. And I think that is phenomenal. So the latest sort of video model can produce the footage with the native multilingual dialogue already built in. So that's fascinating. Then you've also got Pine Drama, the company that owns the distribution service for short form drama. They're also building the machinery that can make any drama speak any language. So you've got distribution and translation all under one roof. I mean, I think that's a different kind of power. It really is. But that's not to say that the traditional localization companies, and one of the biggest is Ayuno, which is a consolidation of a multiple number of companies. It went through an acquisition spree over a course of about 10 years. It itself is absorbing the technology rather than simply being displaced by it. So companies like Amazon, Netflix, Disney, they're all incorporating AI into the workflows, covering more than 100 languages. And there's also Deep Dub. This sounds like a laundry list of companies, but these are phenomenal companies, already Hollywood vetted, and has dubbed live sport in real time. So it's extraordinary what we're seeing. But in practice, I think now you've got AI managing continuity and quality control within the production pipeline, but with humans retaining the creative approval. So if it looks slightly out of sync, and if the celery doesn't sound like celery because or it does sound like celery because it shouldn't, then they kind of like take control. So I love the idea that AI is really enabling a lot of the studios and the content creators and even current sort of AI filmmakers work with audio and sound, which is, a filmmaker said to me the other day, 90% of what makes a great film is sound. And he corrected me because I said, "Oh, you mean music?" I didn't say that, Maureen. Is sound. Sound is so important, and I understood him totally. But 90%, and that was, I'll give a shout out. That was Kevin the Kid. I love his name. Kevin the Kid said that. Here's a little shout out for you, Kevin. But anyway, so it brings us back to, what underpins all of this is definitely the rise of the sort of new AI systems that underpins the technology. But yeah, fascinating topic. I'm so glad you brought this forward, because it has that lovely sort of still creator history, fantastic history, Mussolini, goodness me, and also forward-looking technology. So super, and of course, live sport.
I wanted to shout out and give a call out to Zoe Digital, which is a Sheffield-based localization vendor, which works with all the major players in Hollywood, still quite small, but also trying to find that balance between technology and the human in the machine, because we do still need that human. I mean, I think the conclusion is you can't quite yet match human voice actors for really deep, dramatic, and emotional nuance. You might at some point, but we're not quite there yet. Noise creation, sounds creation, I'm going to rely on your expertise and your friend's expertise, Maureen. I don't know exactly how far we've gotten to, but we're certainly progressing very fast. I will finish by saying that in the mid-90s, I was in Moscow in a cinema. Don't ask, it's a long story. And the way they would do it is they would just show the movie on the screen, and there was one guy next to the screen talking the dialogues in Russian over the English subtitle, over the English words, with the same guy did all the voices. He just had the script in front of him, and same flat voice. I mean, I don't understand Russian, so it might have not been that flat, just reading the lines of all the characters as you saw them coming up on screen. It was,
did he do the women's voices in
dubbing I've ever
high
seen.
Voices? Did he use the high voice to do women's voice?
Nope,
or did he no
just
effort
the same
at all?
Voice.
Very Russian, that is just no effort whatsoever.
But going back to your going back to your point, so all the AI filmmakers I've been talking to over the last couple of months are saying that there is something quite special about, a trained actor and the emotion that they impart and their voice. Nothing can replace it at this stage that they can see. So they're using either, their voices and then manipulating it somehow in the AI. But they basically say, no, we still need actors. We still need those voices. So yeah.
Good news, I think.
It's funny, every AI story we do always has a human bit as well, because you were saying the artistic control is maintained by the human, and yes, you will never get Richard Burton AI'd, for example.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
What a voice.
You want.
What a voice.
And,
or Orson Welles.
Yeah.
But let's listen out for the Ambersons. Yeah. The Ambersons remake that is going on in the background there. One of Orson Welles' lost films. Yes.
If you ever want a amusing look at an actor who's had a little bit too much to drink, look up Orson Welles advertising French champagne outtakes, and it's absolutely fabulous.
Sounds like
anyway.
an episode of Schitt's Creek.
Oliver, I thought you were going to say Oliver Reed.
Oliver Reed, any clip by Oliver Reed, any chat show by Oliver Reed, that's easy. But Orson Welles advertising French champagne, the outtakes, absolute gold dust. We will have to move on. Isn't it just fascinating how some people like subtitles and some people like dubbing, and it's so distinct by country? That's weird. And how you sort of get used to reading subtitles and forget that you're doing it. Anyway, that was even better than I expected. I expected something very good. So fascinating. And quite right, Mussolini. Well done for using your powers.
We're not going to cut that bit as a clip for the show.
No, great. He's not really friend of the show, enemy of the show. We don't really like Mussolini, just joking. So that was it. Okay. Fantastic non-English deep dive in English, ironically. I loved it, but it means we must move on to In the News. And it's a business story to start with. So generally we'd go over to Maureen there. She is at the Finnish headquarters of Netflix in Helsinki for some reason. She is got her raincoat on and a clipboard, and she is going to report on the Netflix results and obviously give her fantastic analysis as well. Maureen, you have for that story.
Wow, in Helsinki, that's a first. Okay. I was up late last night, absolutely listening to their video. Sorry, so they reported. So Netflix reported their second quarter earnings on Thursday, and I made sure that I was up, clearly in Helsinki, to listen to Greg Peters and Ted Sarandis for that. But can I just do a little plug? And forgive me, this is it's probably shameful on my part, but I did a preview of the results in Forbes last week, and I was waiting for 3 questions to be answered by Greg Peters and Ted Sarandis. So I'll do a really condensed version of it if I may. But overall, their second quarter was actually in itself, revenue and profitability was in line. Absolutely nothing wrong. The results were great. But guess what? The stock fell overnight 9%. So, and that's not great, especially when you look at in the last year that the stock has fallen by 40%. So the problem here is the forecast. And this is something that Claire and I talk about time and time again, that they're
managing expectations.
There we go. I mean, I just have to sort of look at Claire, and she knows exactly the phrase to use. Exactly, Claire. So the guidance was well below Wall Street's expectation for the second quarter, and for the second quarter running. And as I say, the shares were down. Let's see what happens over the next couple of days. But I think what's happening is the market's not punishing Netflix for what it did, but what comes next. And so my 3 questions that I was hoping to be addressed were these. Okay, so I was looking for viewing hours. All right, so the answer we got was, yes, 2% growth across the first half of viewing hours. But look at what this means. It means against a content spend, which is significant and in the billions, rising by roughly 10%. That means spending is growing 5 times faster than viewing. So what does that actually mean in layman's terms? It means their advertising business needs to fill the gap. Okay, so that was one thing I was looking for was affirmation of this big number that Claire and I spoke about in the last episode, and that is they're trying to achieve a $3 billion target. That was confirmed. That's what they were they were trying to do, and all the US upfront commitments are closing in the next couple of weeks. So they've got a big task ahead of them. The second question I was looking for to be answered was the argument that raw hours understates the audience. Again, what does that mean? Again, and it arrived almost verbatim. So thank you, Greg Peters. He told investors, all hours are not created equal. All right. So thank you, which means live programming that they're resting their significance, I think, funding monies on is 5% of spend, but only 1% of hours. But 6 of the 10 biggest sign-up days be due to live events, and that's the boxing, or it's tennis, it's something else. So, I mean, that's quite significant. The other thing that we were all waiting for, because there's been so much commentary on, oh my God, Netflix is really dumbing down. It's just unsigned deals with podcasts, Sorry, I shouldn't say it in that kind of voice, but we were looking out for the engagement report. So what we watched report, which everyone sort of eagerly awaits to see exactly what are we watching for our money. And they are basically going to turn that from a twice year to annual, and they're not going to share that next to their earnings. So that's a sign in itself. Okay. So anyway, I was also looking out for the free tier, because there's a lot of people who've decided to turn off and churn from Netflix, even though they've got the lowest churn rate, because they find it too expensive, or it's not value for money, and so on. Now, they are doing free trials. They confirmed that. They're being tested in several countries, but only if the advertising market and the economics of the advertising market justifies it. And then I was looking out for specifically, what are they doing with Gen AI? And they were really proud to talk about, and Ted was, to talk about 300 of their titles are using generative AI inside them for either pre or post-production. And one in particular they referred to, which was the American Experiment documentary, used 17 minutes of generative AI. So all in all, I think you can see that the market is a bit frustrated with Netflix. They're not quite sure of the direction. There isn't much scale. They've done some great deals, podcasts, and they've done some publishing deals with Condé Nast and so on. I think that's all volume driven in order to help them justify their advertising yield, which they need to get to $3 billion. But I'll stop there because that was quite a sort of a whirlwind and a lot of coverage. But Claire, I know you'll have a view on Netflix and their earnings.
Yes, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think they managed the narrative very well. I suspect they didn't have a choice. I think that the people are worried about engagement, and it's much more important for them. So this is viewing hours versus subscribers. When they were only subscriber based and there was no advertising, in a way, you didn't really care that much if people didn't watch, as long as they kept subscribing. But now that there is a strong component around advertising, and 60% of all new signups are now in the ad supporting tier, 45% of the US households that have Netflix are streaming on ad supported. So they've done well with selling the ad supported. Now they need to continue to increase the engagement. So I think that is what worries people. Yes, it's still the lowest churn, but it's sort of plateauing in terms of penetration, if not slightly reducing. They're also you mentioned that they've done deals with podcasts and Condé Nast, etc. That's also partly because they're losing a lot of content. So throughout 2026. About 100% of older Netflix originals, which weren't actually fully owned by Netflix, are quietly disappearing from the platform. There are things like The Last Kingdom, The End of the Fucking World, and these are the older ones, but they were big chunks. They had multiple seasons, etc., and they're rolling off the service. And they're also losing a bunch of library content, a lot of big studio blockbusters, Mission Impossible, Men in Black, and this is because licensing deals are expiring and people have more options, and they are moving away. So they are losing their traditional strong blockbuster content, and they're trying to replace them with a lot of live content, which they are hoping will increase engagement, and a lot of different types of library. And it may work, but I don't think these results prove that it already did. So I think it's one to watch. Suddenly they weren't communicating a lot of confidence in it, I would say.
Yeah. And I think also, and it's a pity that they are not going to publish their sort of what we watched, because I think that was really, really, really good sort of
Yeah.
good in terms of transparency as well. But there was another thing which I think it was Lucas Shaw from Bloomberg was writing ad infinitum about, and that was the drop off of audiences from season 1 to season 2. And Ted Sarandos actually did respond to that question specifically, and his answer to this, and it'd be great to hear your view on this, Claire. But he said, look, when season 1 comes out, we spend a hell of a lot of money and we promote it, so we do get a very, very large audience to start with. And he says, so we don't necessarily expect that for season 2, but the fall off between 2025 and 2026 has actually reduced, so it's lower. So the rate at which people are dropping off is lower. So he was kind of confident that that wasn't an issue. Not sure.
I think there's been some analysis, and we could go back to it. Might be a good deep dive in idea. There's something around the gaps between seasons. So traditionally, you had season 1, and that would end in the spring or late spring or early summer, and then season 2 would start in September. So you didn't really have time to forget anything. But what is happening now is sometimes you wait a year, 2 years for a new season, and it's much harder to remind people that this thing is going on. We should move on, but it's a fascinating topic, and perhaps we should spend some more time on it.
Yep. Okay. Always ready for new deep dive ideas. Thank you, Maureen. Moving on. So there are talks happening between BBC and Channel 4. Claire knows about as much as anybody about it. Please tell us about it. But also, crucially, what is your analysis?
There are talks happening everywhere in the UK now. The market in the UK is being redesigned as we speak. This week, the merger between Banijay and All3Media, which we talked about a few months ago, in fact, completed. So that's now a huge powerhouse on the production side. That includes everybody except Fremantle, really. So that's going to be interesting to see. It means there are fewer places that people can sell their content to, but it also means that they have more power when they negotiate with broadcasters and streamers. And they're expecting, obviously, significant cost savings. So that we'll have to see how that ends up. And then in parallel, and this was the background for the BBC Channel 4 talks, Sky and ITV, we've also mentioned this. They are, as you know, Sky is offering to acquire the broadcast assets of ITV, which creates this sort of really UK linear giant, especially in terms of the power they would have in the advertising world, where they would essentially control 70% of advertising. So we'll see what happens there. It still needs to go through regulatory controls, but that's certainly been something that people have been talking about. Now, the BBC has a new director general, Matt Britton. We've also talked about this, who came from Google. Matt Britton was at a UK Parliamentary Culture Committee meeting and formally confirmed something that had been rumoured, that the BBC had approached Channel 4 about a shared streaming future. So this isn't a merger, but it's about putting all of the kind of Channel 4 streaming content on the iPlayer. And Britain explicitly stated that Channel 4 on its own, in light of this new merger, looked very subscale. It didn't say the BBC looked very subscale, but it's also true that the BBC would find it much harder to compete. And there is a real logic in combining these two assets on streaming. It's not only about Sky ITV. It's also about the big platforms. Channel 4 and the BBC do have the two most successful streaming platforms in the UK. They have a lot of content. There's a lot of crossover between their audiences. But it was a big taboo to suggest any sort of closer relationship between BBC and Channel 4. So Matt Britton, my interest in this is that he has not wasted any time in making his mark as a Director General of the BBC. He's just come on in, and that was his first big announcement. I think it makes sense. I think the audience, the UK audience, would benefit from it, but. Yeah, we'll see how and when it actually happens. What do you think, Maureen?
Yeah, I thought this was turning out to be a public spat as well between the new Director General and the new Chief Executive, Priya
of Channel 4.
Of Channel 4. And she said, you know what? In my experience, there are no mergers. Only acquisitions. and I play a partnership is not a takeover. So I thought that was a wonderful rebuttal, because he keeps saying, I think it's twice now, that Channel 4 is subscale. So that's quite
definitely coming out with a bang. Yeah,
he's definitely coming. But we've been here before. We've been here with Project Kangaroo, the BritBox stuff, the Capgemini stuff that was happened about 15 years ago, which did the sort of merger, what the economics would look like, and so on. But I think the market is different, and I think it's a sensible thing. I think they should just get together.
Oh, but we like a spat.
We do like a spat.
Yeah, we do like a spat.
Oh, sorry, Claire. You look like you were about to say something absolutely
No,
profound.
I had nothing to say. We like a spat. Felt like the perfect conclusion. Yeah,
we love a spat here on the Media Beat. Okay, good. And finally, for this segment, we won't talk too much about the World Cup in terms of the footballing results, given that we won't. Semi.
I mean, our large audience in Argentina and Spain is probably very happy today.
And well done them. Absolutely no ill feeling from the great nations of France and England to the great nations of Argentina and Spain. Good luck to them on Sunday through gritted teeth. But the more interesting stuff for us, of course, is viewership, rights, etc. So, Maureen, let's start with that. The business of the World Cup,
exactly, and made the best team win. And Sunday. All right, yeah. So the World Cup has created conflict between nationalities for sure. But what it has done as well is it's broken essentially every American television record it ever touched. So the United States against Belgium, I believe, which was the round of 16, drew reportedly 30 million viewers on Fox, the most watched soccer broadcast in US history. And across platforms, the group stage was up 92% on 2022. So Telemundo's Spanish language coverage, as we've been talking about, grew even faster and has accounted for close to half of the total domestic audience, which connects directly to, this sort of, dubbing and or subtitling and whatnot. But anyway, a very large section of America is happily watching this tournament in a language it does not speak. So two business points to right. So Fox paid 10 years ago, roughly reportedly $485 million, a price agreed a decade ago before the United States was confirmed as its host. It may be the best value sports rights deal of the era. FIFA, okay, is unlikely to make the same mistake twice. So now for 2030 and 2034, it's bundling the English and Spanish language rights into one package. And as we know, we've got Netflix, Amazon, Apple, YouTube, and Disney all are in talks to try and get apparently $2 billion for the US rights alone. Ooh. So second, a warning about carrying these figures forward. This tournament had home teams, home time zones, 104 matches on home soil. So that's different. But as we know, 2030 straddles Spain, Portugal, Morocco. 2034 is Saudi Arabia. And the audiences that set those records will be asleep for large parts of both, I think. So a record World Cup inflates, I think, all the headline advertising numbers. But anyway, it's been a great story. I'm sure Fox will sort of start to share a lot of the data. I think it's been a phenomenal success for Fox. And now we're in the bundle for who gets the rights for 2030 and 2034. And the finals on Sunday. Yay!
No, I didn't know that. Is finals on? Did you?
No,
anyway,
really,
yes.
yeah.
I think there's a good
Sunday.
chance. I would expect both, certainly Netflix. Netflix, didn't realize that, owns the US and Canadian rights to the Women's World Cup for 27 and 39 and 31. So they've already invested some. I think they will be in the running for this. I suspect all the other streamers may well decide that this is something they want to do. I think the ones that are going to get squeezed out are the Spanish language broadcasters. So the Telemundo, which did quite well themselves on those rights. I'd be very surprised if they managed to stay in the running, just because they would have to compete for the entire combined package. They may be able to build some sort of consortium, but it may be that they can't compete. I think the time zone thing is a big one. I mean, we got a bit frustrated. I know English fans weren't very happy with the 2 a.m. kickoff, but they did stay up. I'm not sure that your normal US fan is quite ready for certainly Morocco, Spain, and Portugal is 5 to 6 hours ahead of Eastern time. 8 to 9 of Western time, US Western time, West Coast time, and then Saudi Arabia is even further east. Significant issues there for timings, in the same way that we saw when we were in Qatar over the winter, and traditional broadcast windows were a little bit messed up. So we'll have to see, but certainly a good year for soccer in the US. And I have to wonder whether we're going to keep the hydration breaks when we move away from the US, but we'll have to ask
advertisement breaks.
FIFA. Yes.
Yeah. It is hot in
Right.
Spain and Portugal. It is hot there.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. It's hot in
I've
London.
heard it's quite hot in Saudi Arabia as well, from what I've heard of that country. That football crazy
I've
country.
heard, yeah. So we may be stuck with hydration breaks, maybe forever. All right, moving on.
Yeah. But by the way, fun fact: it used to be called soccer here. Actually, it wasn't America's fault.
I know.
It wasn't America's fault. We were association football versus rugby.
It is America's fault.
No, okay, fine. It's America's fault. Okay, that was wonderful. Thank you very much. Fantastic World Cup. Some certain results notwithstanding, and a great section of In the News. Okay then, Podmoji fans, of which I know we've got some. Let's go. 3 topics as usual. We're going to start with the Xbox restructure. I'm hoping you've got your props available. Claire. Oh dear.
Yes. Xbox is cutting approximately 3,200 jobs throughout fiscal year 2027. That's 20% of its workforce. And the 1,600 that are going immediately. They're also letting go of several previous acquisitions, a few studio games, Double Fine Productions, Compulsion Games will return to being independent. Ninja Theory and Undead Lab are transitioning to new ownerships. They're trying to create flatter organizations. They're trying to focus on high-yield platforms, which is interesting, which is mobile, PC, and massive service-based games. So they're sort of moving away from the consoles, which have been really struggling, and we've talked about this. There's a severe hardware crisis. The prices have gone up so much. We should probably talk about it some more. Anyway, I don't have the prop, so you're going to have to imagine it, and I'm not going to do the bouncing car again because everybody's making fun of me. But think of Legos. This is a consolidation hangover. Over the last decade, all the major companies have aggressively acquired studios, and this is not working out. The Sharma, the CEO of Xbox, admitted that generally Xbox lost 64 cents for every dollar invested in its studios, which is not a good return. So the Legos are being destroyed. The Lego castles are being destroyed. Lego houses and new Lego houses will certainly at some point pop out, but right now they're not working anymore in the games. It's you can only make money by bundling or unbundling, as our favorite wise man said, and that was in Kylian Mbappe. So my virtual Podmoji is a Lego house. Can you imagine it? It's there.
Okay, that's fine. A virtual.
We can add it. We'll add it in post.
In post, Oliver. Too difficult. So it was a hard refusal to do a Podmoji there for a minute, but it was yeah. But a virtual one is perfectly okay. Actually, that's absolutely fine. So half a point
opens a lot of possibilities. What do you think, Maureen?
Yeah, I mean, I thought there's one sentence. There's one sentence that sums all this up, and that was Sharma herself, who dropped the memo that said, quote, "Our business today is not healthy." So I love this new trend of CEOs being honest about stuff. So mine is, oh wow. So okay.
Yeah.
How long has she been there though?
Wow. Oh wow.
Does that make a difference?
Some time. No, some time.
Right,
I think she's on it. It's just been candor. It's candor and I think just honesty.
And it's true. It feels exactly, and everybody knows it. There's no point hiding it. I agree.
Hiding it.
Yeah, good for her. And that's a good Podmoji. It was a physical one, so also 3/4 of the point. Next, we're going to start with Maureen, and I don't know what the implications are of this. You will do. The use of Chinese AI by US companies. That sounds like a massive subject.
Yeah, I know. That's it. So, and it's catching the attention of the government and the regulators. So American companies are actually switching to Chinese models at a rate that, seriously, everyone is standing up and sort of looking at this. There's something called Open Router, which routes corporate AI traffic, and it's the share of American usage going to Chinese models reportedly apparently reached 45% this month, which is quite up. It's up quite like 11-12%. at the start of the year. I mean, the reasons are not ideological. It's just that they're really good models, so why not use it? So DeepSeek, Moonshot now operate really close to the American frontier. They're costing considerably less, 60 to 90% less than the American equivalents. And that is landing just as US labs really are moving closer to corporate customers with their usage-based pricing. And enterprise AI bills are ballooning. So effectively you have a choice, okay, well, I'll go for the cheaper model. And I think that's what's happening. But Washington is investigating. So we've got various committees looking at this. But the problem is not enforcement. So I don't know. You can't tell corporate America what to do, but I'm sure the government might try to do that. So it is what it is. They're using Chinese products because they're cheaper and they're equally as good. That's market forces for you, and that's capitalism.
Yeah.
And
you
my
can't take
pop
bits that you like.
My pop emoji is, and there's no champagne in it. But cheers.
Oh, there you go.
Cheers to the I had this ready just in case England got through, but they didn't. So
they didn't.
Glass. French.
An empty glass. I think it might be more in started drinking quite early on this Friday. Claire, carry on.
Yes, I mean, we're talking big companies. We're talking DoorDash, Airbnb, we're talking Siemens, who are moving to AI companies. And it's entirely linked to the fact that OpenAI and Anthropic, because they've been told they need to start making money, they've transitioned their B2B services from flat rate subscriptions to usage-based billings. There were quite a few memes about CEOs and founders suddenly realizing that their AI bill had gone through the roof in 1 month, and they burned through their entire budget in a few weeks. So it's capitalism for you. I think a lot of them are using hybrid systems. So they're using some of the infrastructure of the Chinese AI, but they're trying to keep the infrastructure providers based in the US, so they're sort of mitigating the risks a little bit. But yeah, my emoji is money, money, money.
Yes, that's nice, lovely. Yeah. That's very good. It wasn't virtual; it was actual fingers. That's excellent.
Yeah, money, money. It's my actual fingers.
All the product development we're doing where I am, it's all about how many tokens have you used now, as opposed to what you can do.
Exactly.
Went through a phase of, oh my god, this stuff's amazing. Then we went through, oh my god, our jobs are going to be gone. Then we're going through a phase of, we can use this. And now we're going, God, it's expensive. So there's
it's expensive. And then now you're going through, we could go with the Chinese. I mean, it's like we've seen this scenario before, but yes.
It's a bit like cloud computing was exactly the same, actually. It's the same sort of, God, they're charging us.
Yeah.
Okay, that was good. Thank you so much. And now we go to Claire. It was sort of, the awards normally start with Claire. It's the Emmy nominations. I haven't seen them. Claire obviously has. What's up with that?
They are out, and they are incredibly concentrated. I think that's the story. So The Pit, great show, got 25 nominations. The Hacks, also great show, got 24 nominations. And there are a couple of series, Widow's Bay and Pluribus, interestingly made by Apple TV, which got 19 and 18 nominations. And I think what we're talking about here is a real, the US call it category stuffing. Basically, every category is now entirely dominated by a couple of big shows, to the point where it's very hard for anything to fall through. There's been some reason. The main reason is that there's just too much stuff. And people cannot cut through the noise. They don't have, Emmy voters do not have the time, energy, and wherewithal to actually watch the lesser known titles. So they go for the ones that have made a lot of noise, and often they're very good. But that means that there's much more concentration. There are a lot of other show awards bodies here that have a restriction on how many nominees for a single category can be, and there isn't that limit in the Emmys, so you could technically have every supporting actress Emmy nomination go to the same series. There's no limitation to it, so it's just interesting to see. It's changed quite a lot. If you think about 25 years ago, which was peak TV, ER, Friends, etc. even then, it wasn't quite as dramatically concentrated at that. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing for everybody, although it's good to see great actors and great shows nominated. But yes, that was my take. So I don't know, what's a good Podmoji for concentrated? I think
something squished up. I don't know. You're right, though. Gosh, looking at the there's 4 out of the 7 supporting actresses of The Pit. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean and they are brilliant. It's such a great show, but it's. But it just means there's no space at all for shows, again, that have done really well on smaller platforms and have had perhaps slightly less, or that are slightly more traditional, but still have done a really great run. So it's an issue. I think it's a little bit of an issue. So, okay, my Podmoji is going to be me looking slightly concerned.
There we go. The classic. Yeah, everyone loves that one. Great fans of that one. The classic Claire.
Everyone loves it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Most people love it. Let's put it that way. We haven't had an actual survey, but I'm sure loads of people love it. That's great. So, Maureen?
I think, and Claire, this actually sets us up for, we must do this episode on the time gap between seasons as well.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I'm pulling my hair out. I've got to wait another 6 months before I see Pit season 3. I need to see it. I'm missing it. And there's plenty of others as well that are a year and a half. You have to wait for the next season.
And it's only I thought this so it can't take that long to make, right? It must be easy to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's only like 1 hour. 1 hour in the
exactly 1 hour.
Exactly one day. One day in hospital life. But so there were two. I guess there are two things. One is I don't know what you thought about this, but I'm not quite sure now if people see the prestige that comes with the Emmy nominations and the Emmy event itself. So it's been knocked off its Sunday evening slot for an NFL game, and it's now been pushed to a Monday as well. So there's that. And Netflix was snubbed as well. I think that was the hot one was snubbed. But I think for the reason that you say, it's just that people just don't have time to consume all of this content and then give it its fair look and review. So but my yes, my Podmoji is.
Chuckling
again. It's changed. It's on a Monday now instead of a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. 0 nominations for us, and of the British podcast, of course. Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. It's a draw this week, 3/4 of a point each. Well done. And that was it. What a goodie. And yes, indeed, good game. The game was the winner. And yeah, well, that's right. And no banners unfurled after. So that was good. It's the big one next time. So I'm sure we'll have something special if we get there. I think we will. Yeah, our centenary. So obviously, stay tuned for that. It's coming very soon. But in the meantime, goodbye, Claire.
Goodbye, Oliver. Goodbye, Maureen. Goodbye, everyone.
And goodbye, Maureen.
Goodbye. And I have a suggestion that we should do our episode 100 on the beach somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, remote.
Please.
Why not? But not in Saudi Arabia.
No.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
No,
you're assuming that's the location. We're not going to do a review of that film, The Beach.
No.
We're just going to be on the beach. Well, I like it.
No, on the beach. Yeah. On the beach.
Let's sort that out.
Sand and water between our toes. There we go.
Yes.
We will see you sunning ourselves, and definitely watch that on YouTube next time for episode 100. But until then, bye-bye.